Hey guys, welcome back to Keys of the Cosmos. Well, it's been a minute, hasn't it? I know I haven't put a video on quite some time. I think it's been close to 6 months, which is crazy. I won't bore you with excuses, but I am back. Just to update you, I am still doing astrophotography. I haven't quit. I definitely haven't been out nearly as much as I was, when I first started this hobby in around June of 2020. As I said, I'm not going to bore you with excuses, but life and just horrible weather here in Toronto. And I know we're not just in Toronto, lots of areas around us have had bad weather. So, yeah, I haven't been able to get out as much. I have been focusing sort of on just adding to, previous pictures. So, I've been taking data from a year or two, sometimes I think, probably not more than 2 years ago. And then I've been adding to it this year. And so, I made a video about that not too long ago. So, the nice thing about that is, you're not going into an image knowing that you need, I need 4 or 5 nights or 3 or 4 nights of data, and who knows when my next clear night will be. You already have whatever, might be 2 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours of data, and then you can add one night, and whether you get 3 to 6 hours, you can add to that and create a whole new image, reprocess it, and hopefully get a much better result. And so that's what I've been focusing on. I did Thor's helmet. I'll show you some of my pictures here, which I was happy with. I was able to add a few hours to that. Still not a lot, but it was nice to be able to improve that image. I added most recently to my Pinwheel Galaxy, and I was able to get, double up on time on that. I think it's up to around 12 hours now, 13 hours. And a few others. I did do a few original, new data images. I did the Helix and a couple others, a starless flaming star, which I was happy with as well. But yeah, I really haven't done much like new data images. So I'm hoping this summer I'll be able to do that. Like, I still, of course, love astrophotography. It's just, I had to take a backseat for a little while, and so did my videos. But I am back, and I wanted to try something, but we'll feature something a little bit different. We know we focus mainly on astrophotography, and I don't do much visual, and I know a lot of maybe younger ones who are just kind of getting into astrophotography, maybe they kind of skipped the visual part, or they did it very briefly like I did and then got right into astrophotography. But there is still quite a few that do visual, and I have to say, even though I don't do it much, I do really enjoy it when you're able to get out to dark skies and do visual astronomy. It's pretty amazing. And this right here, these binoculars, probably the biggest binoculars you've ever seen. I know they definitely were when I first saw them. These are pretty special, so I thought we'd sort of feature them. These are the Orion, I think they're called the GiantView BT-100 binocular telescope, something like that. So we'll talk all about it, but it is primarily a binocular, but kind of in the style of a telescope. So that's why they're really good for astronomy. So let's talk a little bit about these and just sort of the pros and cons, and maybe who these would be for. Because these definitely aren't your average binoculars. I kind of refer to these as the Takahashi of binoculars. If you saw my video on my Takahashi telescope, I raved about how amazing it is, but it comes with a price. So it's definitely not for everyone, and whether that price is worth it, well, that's for each person to decide for themselves. But that's kind of the category I put these in, the Takahashi of binoculars. So that sort of gives you an idea of what we're getting into here. So just some quick specifications of these Orion BT-100 binoculars. So they're a 4-inch aperture. I'll show a picture here of the lenses. Really high quality lenses, multi-coated. This isn't just some glass they threw in here. It's very good glass, and that's sort of the theme on back. It's very high quality materials that are used in these binoculars. So 4-inch aperture. Now the focal length is 550 millimeters. So very good, focal length. That's a medium size telescope right there. Now, when you're figuring with eyepieces, now you're trying to figure out power. So you can Google it, but basically what it is you take the focal length, 550, and then you divide it by whatever the eyepiece is. So if it's a 10 millimeter eyepiece, you're at 55 power. Okay, so you can put any number of eyepieces in this. That's what's nice about it. It just holds a regular 1.25 inch eyepiece. They're compression fit, so they fit snug. I think it's a helical focuser. Like I said, really high quality, and the results speak for themselves as a result of using high quality materials. It is featured on this beautiful Orion mount. which we'll talk a little bit about more. Now this is sold separately, and it also, you can get a case for this, which is of course also sold separately. You can already start to see this can add up quickly, and the prices have gone up since originally I viewed this, or you started using these binoculars. So as with everything else, prices go up, but like I said, you do get really high quality materials for what you pay. So as I mentioned, these are very high quality, and you kind of got to think of them as more of like looking through two telescopes. So each eye gets its own telescope. So these aren't regular binoculars. Now these aren't regular binoculars either. These are, used for, these are 20 by 80. And these are, very nice. They do an excellent job, but the difference between the two is substantial. And so these still have their place. They're great that you can throw these in their carrying case and you can take it with you. You can put these on a regular tripod, a heavy duty one. But these weigh, I don't know, I'm going to guess somewhere around 5-6 pounds, maybe 7. These are much easier to travel with, and you don't need to spend a ton of money. And these are great for like star clusters, Pleiades, and with these is amazing. Orion, things that are really big in the sky, especially if you get out to dark skies. These are great. But when you step up to something like this, you're getting into something a lot more specialized. You're obviously dealing with a lot more focal length, and so you're able to view smaller things. The advantage of something like this, so you might be wondering, well, why don't I just use my telescope? I can get more focal length. It's cheaper, almost guaranteed, unless you're talking about, Takahashi. These are more than your average telescope, even if you're talking like an Edge HD, an 8-inch. These are definitely more. But what's nice is if when you get binoculars dialed in using both eyes, there's nothing that beats that view. It's a big disc, and it's sort of expansive. It's hard to explain, but it's almost like more of a 3D view. And if you've never experienced it, it's hard for me to explain that way, but that's the best way I can explain it. It's like a 3D view. So when you are able to get out to dark skies and look through something like this, it's better than any telescope that I've ever looked through. Now, I've never used my Takahashi for, viewing, so I have no idea what they look like. I have looked through my Edge HD, obviously. I love looking at planets, and you're not going to get the detail because of the focal length that you will in these. Like, you might get a better view quality-wise, but with 550 millimeters of focal length, you can't compete with like 1500 on an Edge HD or whatever it is. So these aren't like, you can definitely view planets with these, don't get me wrong. But if you're looking for like super detail and you want to get really zoomed in, this wouldn't be the ideal choice. And maybe it is better to go with an Edge HD. Now you can get, I think it's called a Binocular. I don't know, I'll post them here. These I think are more scientific. So basically this fits into your typical eyepiece holder for a telescope, and now you can use both eyes. I've never tried it, so I have to say, so that is always an option. I can imagine it would be a much nicer view than just using one eye. So that is an option, but these aren't cheap either. This is like 675 bucks American. I'm sure there are cheaper ones, but as I always say, when it comes to telescopes, when doing visual, it's only as good as the cheapest piece of glass that you put in it. So if you really want to do visual, you don't want to put a cheap piece of glass anywhere in the system because it just downgrades everything. So obviously there are cheaper ways to get, using both eyes to do visual, but these are great. And there's a few other reasons that I really like these, and it has a lot to do with the mount as well. But just a few other things, they are shockproof. Okay, that doesn't mean you want to drop them, but they can withstand some rumbling in the car. If you buy the case, the optional case, I mean, this thing, here's a picture of it. This thing's bulletproof. I'm pretty sure it's waterproof, it's bulletproof. Like, you're not gonna have a problem. But even like, say whatever, something happens or gets knocked, they're very durable. Like, you can feel the quality of these things. So they are shockproof. They're waterproof as well. So while you wouldn't want to submerge them, you don't have to worry about dew. If you were to leave them out for a few hours and they collected dew on top, they're gonna be just fine. What else is good to know about them? Now, this version is the 90-degree version. So you can see that the eyepiece is set at 90 degrees. They also make a 45-degree. Now, the good thing about these two, like any binoculars, as opposed to a telescope that you wouldn't really use for terrestrial views during the day. I know a lot of people who do astrophotography also do like birding. I don't myself personally, but you might be able to use these for that or whatever. If you live in an area with very nice views that you want to look across a far distance, they look great. They're great from this. Now, the reason I mentioned the 45-degree angle ones is that those are much better for terrestrial, because you can imagine when you use these, you need to be right over top of them, and unless you keep it low down, it can be tricky. Whereas the 45-degree ones are much better for terrestrial. You don't have to kind of get up and over the binoculars. But the good thing with these is the 90-degree, you're usually tipping them up, obviously, if you're looking at space, so it's not much of a problem. And if you are looking close to zenith, these are the way to go. If you're the 45-degree ones, forget about it. You're going to be on the ground trying to look, if you're looking fairly straight up. So that's definitely a benefit to the 90-degree, but they do have a 45-degree version as well. I'm not sure if everything on them is the same, but I know these are their highest end, at least that I'm aware of, that they make. Unless they came out with a new model, but these are the 90-degree version of the BT-100. So talking a little bit about the mount, now you don't have to buy the Orion mount with it, okay? You can use what's called a parallelogram. I don't know if you've ever seen that before, but it's sort of it's the way to go if you're not going to buy this, because the nice thing is a parallelogram, basically it works a lot like a mount where you have a weight on one end and it balances out. So you can turn that parallelogram and you can take your hands off it. It holds the binoculars wherever they are. They're great to use even with these, because these, even though they're like 6-7 pounds, try holding that, and trying to keep it still, looking at something. Your hands start to shake, your arms start to shake, and you don't get a great view. So even for that, it's great. But these are 14.5 pounds, okay? So you're not going to put these on just any, tripod. But it has to be a heavy duty one, and it's best if it has the capabilities of something like a parallelogram, where you can move it around freely, you can take your hands off it, and you don't have to worry about it falling. Why these are amazing is there is no weight involved. You don't have to put any sort of weight to counterbalance it. You see the way these move, all you have to do is kind of get it, and it's really quick just to get it balanced up and down. Obviously you don't want to be all the way up or all the way down, but you see with these, I don't touch it, it moves wherever you want to look. And this thing is solid, like really high quality. This thing could probably hold 100 pounds. And it just has like a dovetail adapter, just like you would on any telescope. So it's really nice, easy to put in. These are beautiful. Like this mount makes it that much more enjoyable. So in my opinion, if you're going to spend the money on these, and you got like another, I don't know what it is. I mean, these could be close to $1,000 now, the mount. It is worth it. A parallelogram works fine, but these are even better. You don't have to worry about the weight. Anytime you have a weight, just like with your mount and your telescope, you have a brain fart and you take the telescope off first, that weight can go flying, they can get your hand caught. This is just so nice. Like, it's really luxurious, and super easy to use. Now they also have a handle here. I'll show you pictures just so you can see in the case, but this handle is great. As mentioned, 14.5 pounds, not easy to carry, so you can just pick them up like that and drop it down into the case as well. But yeah, like super high quality, and with this mount, it's just so enjoyable to use. You never want to be out there and fumbling, and it just gets frustrating. So with these, it's just, there's not a lot of setup. You just pop them on, put your eyepieces in, and away you go. And you can try and find stuff. Now, nice too, you can kind of put a laser pointer on this if you want as well, just to sort of give you a good idea of where to find stuff, because we are dealing, as I mentioned, 550 millimeters of focal length, so it is quite zoomed in. But what's nice too is that with the eyepieces, you can put whatever eyepieces you want. So if you're looking at the moon, you might want to use something like a 40. I don't even know. I haven't used them in quite some time. I don't even know if that might be too much. Probably not, actually. Maybe a 30 or 40 millimeter. If you're looking for something smaller and you're in dark skies, you can put like a 10 in or something, or maybe even a 6 or 8. Again, though, you do want to use, it's kind of a waste if you put cheap eyepieces in. So that kind of gets us into our cons. You need 2 of them. So you want to buy a nice eyepiece. They can be, I don't know, $400 easy. Now you need 2. So that's sort of the downside, but the nice thing is you can put as nice a eyepiece as you want, and it will definitely improve the quality compared to a lower quality one. There are like eyepieces that have adjustable. They go on from like 8 millimeter to 30. I don't know what it is, 24 millimeter, something like that. I'm sure you've seen those before. The problem is they're usually not the best quality. They're not terrible, but it's a good way to sort of get a gauge of what eyepiece, what power you want to be at to view certain things, depending what it is and how big they are. So that's always an option instead of having to buy like a set of maybe 4 or 5 different eyepieces, which can get crazy expensive. You could just start with those adjustable ones. You can get them on Amazon. They do have higher end ones as well. Still don't think they're the best quality, but it'll work. I've used them on this and it's just fine, especially if you're in dark skies. But yeah, you can change them up depending what you want to look at, just like you would with any telescope. But again, with 2 eyes, you just get this like sweeping view and this big disc of visual space that you're seeing. So it really is amazing. Like, as I said, I'm not a huge visual guy, but these are special. And so the nice thing too is when we're talking about eyepieces, as opposed to like regular binoculars, you can actually screw in a filter. So this one here is a really nice one. This is actually made by Orion. This is the Ultra Block Narrowband. So this is great for looking at like, sort of emission nebula that are bright but are smaller, would be hard to see. It gives you really nice contrast. You wouldn't use this for looking at like Pleiades. This is too aggressive. But looking at, if you want to go to dark skies and try and look at nebula, you can definitely get a great view and you get really nice contrast with these. These are very bright. That's what you'll notice. And then, you put the right filter in depending what you're looking at and you get just a beautiful view. Even with the moon, you'd probably want to put a moon filter in because it can be, if you've ever looked at before, if it's anywhere close to full, it's almost blinding when you first look at it. So it's fun to play around with it and sort of dial it in. As I mentioned, it's not cheap to do that, but maybe that's why starting with the adjustable eyepieces is a good idea. And then if you find one you really like, you can go ahead and splurge and get a really nice eyepiece for each one, and that'll sort of be your go-to setup. But yeah, these are amazing, I have to say. Now, are they worth it? Well, you can look up the price in your area. Like I said, they have gone up quite a bit, but if you're into visual and you do want something that can be used for terrestrial too, this is definitely your best option. You will not get a better binoculars than this. At least not that I am. Not that I'm any expert on visual, but these are amazing. And like I said, there's just something about using both eyes and getting it dialed in just right, and you get that beautiful disc of view and a field of view, and it's amazing. I've never really gone out to dark skies with these, but I would love to because it would be amazing. Any like star cluster like M13, M3, but then you can imagine looking, if you're able to get out really dark skies and use like a filter like this, you might be able to look at like the helix or something like that. Even I've heard of people looking at the ring nebula. I can imagine that would look small, but you would probably get some really nice views with these. So it is hard to justify, no doubt about it, and they're definitely not for everyone. But like I said, if you're looking for pretty much the best binoculars you can buy, super high quality, they'll last you forever, built basically like a telescope, the dew shield and everything, this is the way to go. It's just, I do recommend, if you are gonna buy them, make sure I would get the mount if you can, or get a really good parallelogram, but this is top notch. And you're going to want to get the case, because where else do you keep these? That's the problem. Like, where are you going to put these? You can keep them on a shelf, but if you're going to travel with them, which probably most people are, it's not easy to. So I don't know if someone else is making cases for them. They're definitely not the most popular products. So you're not going to get like a lot of third-party cases as you would maybe some other telescope equipment. But sort of take a look at prices you can find. Maybe you can find them used, but if you can sort of piece everything together, it's such a nice setup to be able to go and quickly do visual. That's the key. The mount is not heavy. It looks big, but it's not heavy. These are 14.5 pounds, so they're big. The case is very big, but they also hold all your eyepieces and all that. So you throw everything in the car, you drive out where you want to go, and within 10 minutes you're set up and ready to go. And as I showed you, you can just sort of fling this thing around and find anything that you want in the night sky. So really amazing. I definitely recommend it if you can afford it, and if it's something that you're really into visual, I would say these are a definite go. I enjoyed the view from these better than anything I've ever looked at in my telescope. So definitely great for visual astrophotography. Well guys, I'm not going to promise you a video as far as timing, but I do hope to have another one out soon. I'm hoping for good weather coming up with these summer emission nebula coming out soon, and I'll be able to get some videos on that, and hopefully we can keep this thing going. But thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate your support, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.